Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're having a great day so far and welcome to today's video, which is terrifyingly my most dreaded video of the year for me to film. It's my worst of 2024. It makes me slightly terrified. It makes me absolutely quake in my boots to make this video, but we're doing it because I know you guys love to hear the slander, because I know that you guys love it. You love to see how uncomfortable it makes me, and you love to hear the juicy tea on the products that I did not love this year. So without further ado, let's get started. So I have chosen my 10 least loved, most disliked, most hated makeup products that came out this year to share with you today. Just a quick disclaimer to make me feel slightly less terrible about this. I don't actually think that there are any terrible products in front of me on the desk. They're just products that don't tickle my pickle, that didn't work as I wanted them to, that didn't live up to my expectations or what I wanted them to be, or that in some way, shape or form disappointed me. So please don't feel badly if I'm about to mention one of your holy grails. It just means brilliantly for you that it worked better for you than it did me, that it suited you better than it did me, and that's absolutely fine. So don't feel badly. It doesn't mean that you're wrong. It just means that a product has worked, been a better fit for you than it was for me, and I'm exceedingly happy that it was, because I hate for you guys to waste your money. Okay, so kicking us off, first up, it's Natasha Denona's My Mini Dream Glow Blush, this ombre effect little number. Now this is a perfect example of a product that's not terrible, that isn't like a disaster. Nothing terrible happens when using this product. I just find it so disappointing personally, because the thought of Natasha Denona bringing out a glowy blush that has this ombre effect, so you can tailor how much pigment or how much impact you want with the highlighter as well, and you can mix it all together and get the glowiest, most gorgeous cheek, because Natasha does like cheek products so well. Blushes, especially her cream highlighters, are so beautiful, and those little, you know, palettes with multiple blush and highlighter cream format products are so great from Natasha that I was just so excited for this to be like the powder version of that. But it just didn't give me what I hoped it would. So I've mixed all three shades together here and swatched them on my hand. First of all, this is not a blush on me. If I mix everything together to get that glowy blush that I was hoping for, it's just highlighter, and this looks very like ashy on my skin, looks very grey. So if I just stay over on the blush side, I can get, with a bit of building, a nice sort of rosy tone blush that is fine but is matte and is a little powdery as well for my preference. It doesn't feel light, it feels a little chalky, dare I say. It just is not what I had in my mind. I thought we were going to mix this together and get this gorgeous glowy rosy blush, and that's just not what happens for me and my skin tone. So it was just a personal disappointment. I feel like this could have been such a winner. I don't really hear anyone speaking about this or using this. I feel like it could have been so much better than it was. I wish it had been just a full size. It doesn't need to be a mini, that's number one. Given us a full size, given us a bit more richness and depth, so that when blending in with the highlighter, we could still get some colour, even like those of us who have a deeper than a very, very fair skin tone. I just wish we'd done, you know, a bit larger of a size with a varying offering of shades. I feel like if we'd had 3 or 4 different shades of this, it would have been far more successful for far more people. So that was a very sad time, because I was excited about that. Next, let's talk about this Chanel Winter Glow Primer. This is the Healthy Winter Glow primer to give it its full name. So this again is a product that I imagine lots of people love. I think if you have a dry skin type, this is probably something that you would just get on far better than me with. I just saw the sort of glow primer claim and thought, oh, this is gonna be like Charlotte Tilbury's Hollywood Flawless Filter, the Dior stuff, glow, that sort of thing. This just is like not glowy enough for me. It's just like, it looks as though I've just put a moisturizer or a hand cream on. There's no real glow. There's a slight bit of like my hand is just still absorbing the product, but when this has worked into the skin, there's really no glow to be found. It does feel nice and hydrating, but not dramatically so, and it's very high fragrance as well. I can smell it from here on my hand, and it's give me a slight eye twitch. So this just didn't really live up to what I was expecting from it. It's not that glowy, and you definitely can't see any glow, you know, once you've gone in with foundation. It's definitely not going to sort of glow through the foundation. So I got my hopes up, and they were dashed. I needed it to be a lot glowier than it was. And also, why is it so small? I don't know. But whew, the fragrance as well. I mean, I'm obviously not surprised about that because it is Chanel, and they just love us to walk around like barely being able to breathe because of their products are so fragranced. But yeah, I wanted more Chanel. Next up, we're going to talk about a product from Fenty Beauty, and it's their blushes. Again, I feel like all of these products in front of me, the theme that they have all got in common is that they are products I should have loved on paper. So I think that's why I feel the way I do about them. I'm disappointed because all of these I should have loved and they just fell short. So they disappointed me more than a product that I thought, I'm not really going to like this. And then I didn't. You know, these are products I thought I'd love, and then my hopes were dashed. So next we have these Hot Cheeks blushes from Fenty. On paper, I should love these. The packaging is delightful, very, very beautiful. The issue I have with these, they're very glittery. So they're not that sort of smooth, glowy finish that I love from a blush. It's quite chunky, and it sort of feels a bit rough to the touch, let's say. But the main issue I've got with them is, why are they all essentially the same color? This is what I would have loved, a much wider range. I've got two of the most different shades. So this is Fresh Peach and Juicy Peach. They're all peachy shades. That's number one. Why was there not, you know, a pink or a coral or a more neutral or a mauve or a rose? Why were they all peach to begin with? You know, I never thought I'd be saying that because I am a peachy girl, but I'm not the only person that exists. So I wish there were other colours. Even these two that are quite, you know, the far ends of the spectrum from the range that is on offer are only slightly different to each other. One is just a little bit darker, but everything is peach. Everything is a bit too sparkly. Everything's got quite a big shift to it, which I think works beautifully as eyeshadow, but having quite a shift like that in a blush, it does, I don't know if it's just me, it just doesn't work that well. I feel like when you turn your cheek, it then can make quite a sort of harsh line that isn't there, you know, at another angle, and it's a little tricky to work with. And then, you know, the gold throughout the shade is so strong that it then just looks really off on the cheek again, and depending on when you turn your cheek, because it's got really big shift between peach to a very yellow gold, and it just, neither of these shades look great on me. I don't love how much glitter there is, like visible chunky glitter. I don't love the texture, feels quite rough, but overall I just think for these to have worked really for that many people, we needed a bit more of a variation rather than just like a whole different load of peaches, like it's some kind of market stall. Another product that I didn't love and just couldn't get to grips with this year is these Lancome Idole liquid eyeshadows. I tried to love these. I used these on camera. I can't remember the video, but I did use this in a video and it looked terrible, and I blamed myself because I had used a concealer set with powder to prime my eyes, as I always do, and then gone in with this, and it just literally like lifted everything up and then looked really horribly patchy. And I sort of, you know, fair enough, not everything will work nicely on top of a set base when it's a liquid. So I thought, fair enough, that's my bad. And I tried several different ways to use this. I tried it, you know, with no base. I tried it with an eyeshadow primer, and it just never looks even. It's always a bit patchy, and it's never really gives you, you know, that much impact. It's quite subtle. The base, I feel like, blends away really easily. So I'm always seeing lid through it. It never has enough opacity to get, you know, the full effect and the full color. It's always just a bit patchy and a bit see-through, and I just can't get along with it very well. It doesn't seem to dry down nicely. I don't like it, and I'm so sorry about it, because I typically love Lancome products, but this one I just could not get it to work well for me. It's definitely not idiot proof. Next up, let's talk about these abominations from Dior. These are probably one of my most hated products that I have on the desk in front of me, because again, they could have been so great, but they aren't. So the packaging, delightful, gorgeous, glorious, love it so much. The biggest issue with these, so these are a bronzer. They also have a tiny strip of blush and a tiny strip of highlighter. So they're supposed to be like an all-in-one product, but actually you really, when you swirl everything, you just get a very standard, quite matte bronzer. The biggest issue I have with these is, as I've said over and over again, I picked up 3 shades of these and they are all almost identical, pretty much identical. And some of these are supposed to be lighter and some of these are supposed to be deeper for deeper skin tones, and yet they are all exactly the same, more or less. There's a negligible difference between any of these 3. They are almost identical. So the fact that they gave us these multiple shades with different skin tones and yet they're all the exact same is atrocious. You know, I bought 3 thinking I was going to really love these, and I only needed to buy 1 to find out that I in fact didn't, because they are the exact same thing over and over again, slightly packaged differently. So that was really disappointing. And not only are they all the same, but they're just so average. They're not even as nice as Dior's regular range bronzers, I would say. They're just very matte. I don't see any blushing or highlighting to go on in these swatches. They don't glow, they're a flat matte, and they look a bit heavy and they're a bit dusty and very, very warm. I don't know why we did those. I just don't understand it. We definitely could all have done without them. I know I could. Next up, let's talk about this Westman Atelier concealer. Again, it's so sad because you could have been so great, but there is a big issue with the shades in this concealer, and I really am sad about it because I love this concealer. It's got great coverage, gorgeous packaging, and it is beautiful under the eyes. It looks gorgeous. I find it very flattering, and I find it to not crease and to wear really well and to have a lovely consistency that blends so easily. But it's Simpson yellow for me, and I bought a neutral shade, and I've been through and looked at so many shades and so many swatches, and so many of these shades are just so warm and so yellow. It's completely unusable to me. It looks so off, and it's so infuriating to have paid quite a lot for quite an expensive concealer, and you guys know we can't return used makeup here in the UK. So this is just like my money in the bin, and it's essentially false advertising because I was told this was a neutral shade, and it is literally the yellowest concealer I have in my entire collection. And there are no other more neutral shades for me around the depth that I need, so I've got nowhere to go with it. I can't use it, and that's just so sad and infuriating. And I know I'm not the only one to have had this experience. I've seen a lot of reviews and people really struggling with the shades and how yellow so many of them are. So I was very disappointed. I really wanted to love it, and I did except for the shade, which just makes it a complete fail for me, because the shade is so important, especially with your concealer. And I just never like my makeup when I've used this, because the shade just always looks a bit off and it just throws everything else out because it's so yellow. So that was very sad. I hope and pray that they're gonna extend their shade range and adjust the undertones, but I fear they will not. So that was a sad day. Next up, let's talk about these Armani Beauty liquid highlighters. I was so excited for these because the blushes are so beautiful, and I thought these would be this gorgeous like glass skin, luminous, gorgeous, melting into the skin type of highlighters, but these are so glittery. I have 3 shades now and I keep getting more shades, thinking I'm going to come across one that is like what I wanted it to be. And then I was sent a couple in PR, but I can't find a shade that is anything other than a very, very glittery nightmare. So this is shade 1, which is like the white. Great shade for like very fair skin, but this literally looks like, you know, a sparkling liquid eyeshadow. It's so shimmery. Very hard to see like the particles, I think, on camera, so you might just have to sort of trust me a bit. Obviously this colour is too light for my skin tone, but I just, and it's almost like looks blue, the undertone of this, which I think maybe if you're super duper fair, you would really like the shade and the undertone. But for me, these were just a bit of a shame because I find them hard to use. They pick up my like products underneath if I'm not super careful, and they're just, you can always see a bit of shimmer on the cheeks as opposed to like a smooth glossy glow, which is what I was hoping for. So those were a fail, and I feel like actually the shades that I've used, or even like the gold that I got that was the better for my skin tone, it's very sparkly. So just not my kind of highlighter, sadly, and I really thought it would be. Next up, we've got another Natasha Denona product. It's this Hyper Natural face palette. I don't know why these are always called face palettes when they're very clearly eye and face, or eye and cheek palettes, but that's another story. I just don't know what to do with it. It's neither here nor there. It's odd having bronzers in here, and these are all quite soft. You see, that's like me mixing all of the shades together, and we only had 1 shade of this. You know, there wasn't a lighter and a deeper, so I can build it up and get something, which I like. I really wish Natasha would just give us singles, like individual bronzers, but sure, that's fine. This blush is my nightmare. It's so pink. They're just not shades that I would ever use. Very, very pink, and yeah, not for me. I wish these were glowier. They're just very pink matte blushes that I am never going to use. And then like 5 very random eyeshadows mixed in the bottom. We don't know why. And people always like to argue with me about this whenever I start to slander this palette. You know, they like to defend it by saying, oh, it's supposed to be like single shadows, it's supposed to be 5 single shadows, but then when you look at Natasha's information about this palette, it says, you know, use them as singles or layer them, you know, together. So it is supposed to also give you an eyeshadow look, and it just really doesn't for me. I just don't know how this comes together for a look. So I understand what you're saying, you can use them as singles, and that's great. It just means that for me, it's just not something I'm ever going to use. If I'm doing a sort of one and done shadow look, I'm not going to pick up a large palette to do that. I'm going to use a single shadow. If I want to, you know, use a palette and have the look work out together, I'm just never going to use this because it just doesn't make a look. For me, it's all like kind of a bit of a mismatch. It doesn't make a look that I would wear as far as, you know, using several of these shades together. I'm missing lots of things, and there's no mattes. Everything as far as the eyeshadows is a shimmer, so I haven't got any mattes to work with unless I use the bronzer, which again, it's kind of light, so I've got nowhere to go as far as depth unless I go for shimmers. And as far as single shadows, they're quite, again, there's like a peachy flatter shade. We've got one that's sort of, I would use as like a shimmer, like a top copper shade, and then we've got something grungy, and like these are just quite understated. So I feel like it doesn't do any of the things perfectly for me and how I would use makeup and my preferences and the kind of eyeshadows and shades that I like. I can see how it would work brilliantly for someone else, someone who loves pink blush and who loves these shades of eyeshadows as singles, but it just doesn't work for me and cohesively to make a look and to make a product that I would use a lot. It kind of doesn't tick any boxes fully because there's no highlighter, there's only pink when it comes to the blush. The bronzer or contours take quite a lot of building, and then the shadows are neither singles nor a full look for what I use it for. So it's tricky. I feel like it's kind of neither here nor there, and it doesn't sort of really hit the mark in any of the things that it does. So I feel like it was on paper kind of a good idea, but we didn't quite pull it off. I feel like we needed at least like a few different color stories so that different skin tones and just people who don't like bright pink fuchsia blush could have maybe found something that they enjoy. I wish this had been, you know, a look. And sure, we can have a few options for shimmer shadows that could have been singles, but I feel like we needed a couple of like transitional shades in here to make a full look, and it could have been great, but for me and what I like, it doesn't do any of the things quite right. Next up, we have these YSL lipsticks. So these are the collector's edition Loveshines. So these are like the sparkling finish Loveshines. Now I have reviewed these, I did a video on these, and I just feel the same way about them. The issue is that they aren't really sparkling. So this is shade 44, and this is the one of the ones that I have in the original formula and in this sparkling formula, and there's just really no difference. One of the shades is a bit more sparkly. If you watched my initial review, you'll have seen there's one that's really sparkly, one that's like not sparkly at all, and then one that's in the middle, which I think is this one, that's kind of, if you really stare at it, you can kind of see some flecks of glitter. But they definitely aren't different enough to the original formula to like call them something different. And I feel like people will be so disappointed if you already own the regular shade and you bought the same shade expecting it to be something different. It looks exactly the same and exactly the same on the lips. And there's quite a discrepancy across the three shades that they released. Like I said, one that is just the normal formula, one that has a little bit of sparkle you can make out, and then one that's how you would expect it to be. So again, it's a bit unfair that depending on which shade you choose, you might actually get what you paid for, or you might not, because they're not consistent. The formula is not consistent. And I find that so disappointing, because especially as these are like a holiday release with the gorgeous holiday packaging, you're going to buy these really wanting something sparkly and perfect for a holiday party along the lines of like the Dior sequins, and you're just going to get their regular Loveshine formula. Unless you stare really closely, you might be able to make out some glitter. So I feel sad about these because I think so many people will feel like it was a waste of their money, especially if they owned the original formula in the same shade. They've got the same lipstick twice essentially. So I feel like, yeah, I don't like people being disappointed. These needed to be like much more exciting than they were. And finally, one that I'm really sad about, and this is not, to be fair, a big fat fail. This is just a product that I was so excited about, and I feel like just really sad that it's just not quite for me, even though I really badly wish it were. But it's these Kosas blushes. I know you're going to be so shocked because these should be my favorite ever blushes on paper. They look so beautiful, and the claims that they're this gorgeous luminous blush, I was so excited to get hold of these and to try these out. But yeah, I got the shade Dreamland, and it sort of barely shows on me. I do have to build it up quite a bit, and it's really not very glowy. I thought this was going to be really, really glossy, luminous, glowy delightfulness. And it's not matte, but it's kind of mostly matte with maybe a little bit of a sneaking into a natural finish, and I was just very underwhelmed. I also find like there's something about the base that doesn't quite work for my skin tone with this blush. Like as I apply it, it's almost like it goes a little off, a little grey. There is something like that doesn't work with my base. It's got like a shift to it, or maybe it hasn't got that much base, I'm not sure. But as I blend this into the skin, it starts to look muddy, really muddy. And it just doesn't work for my skin tone whatsoever. And I've gone back and forth. I know when I first reviewed these, I wanted to get like other shades because I thought maybe it's just this shade. But the more I look at swatches, the more I feel like there are a lot of very similar shades in this range. I feel like lots of them look almost the same, or certainly on the cheeks, pretty much the same shade. And I can't seem to find any that don't look to be, you know, to have the same issues as this one does for me. I love the packaging. I wanted these to be like it. If you know of a shade that you think will work on my skin tone, that will show up, that is as glowy as they kind of promise to be and doesn't have that sort of muddy look or leaning to the undertone of it, please let me know, because I've really been wanting to keep trying with them, because on paper I should love these, but I just didn't, and I haven't used it at all. You can see it's like brand new, and I really thought these were like going to answer all of my calls and prayers for the perfect glowy smooth cheek of dreams. And I thought these were going to really sort of be a competitor to the Hourglass blushes, because Hourglass have discontinued their strobe lighting blushes for some unknown reason, and I love those. And so I thought this is going to replace the Hourglass strobe light blush, because there's not that many shades of the ambient lighting blush either in singles. So yes, that was what I hoped these were going to be, and they just aren't as beautiful as the Hourglass. So that was a very, very sad day, and I have been trying to let it grow on me, but it's not. Please let me know if there's a shade you think that you would recommend that will work better. I'm definitely willing to give this one another try in a different shade. I just am confused with the swatches, and they all look to be pretty much the same. So there you have it. Those are my 10 least loved products of 2024. Please join me in my fear and terror and discomfort, and tell me some products that you hated this year, that did not work for you, that were so disappointing. Are they any of the same as mine? Do you have something totally different? Please let me know what products just were a complete and utter fail for you this year. I'd love to hear. It's quite entertaining when it's not me having to suffer the shame and embarrassment. But thank you so much for joining me today. I hope you enjoyed this video and found it helpful. Maybe it saved you some money, and I would love to see you in the next one. Otherwise, take care for now. Bye 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 bye.